now in session. Senator Susi is going to introduce 588, an act relative to employer notice of veterans benefits and services. Welcome, Senator. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, I'm Donna Susi, representing Senate District 18, 5 wards in the city of Manchester and the town of Litchfield. I am a co-sponsor of the bill, but I'm here for the prime sponsor, Senator D'Alessandro, who regrets that he couldn't be with us this morning. This bill is very straightforward, but very impactful to the people it has the potential to assist. The bill provides that the labor commissioner would prepare, create, and distribute a Veterans Benefits Services notice. We have a large number of veterans in the state of New Hampshire. Of the 16 million, 101,000 veterans reside in New Hampshire, with over 74,000 having served during wartime. That's a lot of people that are potentially impacted by services available to them. The concern is that a lot of these people are back in the workforce. They're back from active duty. They may need assistance with various things and be unaware of some of the benefits that are available to them. Like many of us, until you're presented with a situation, you don't necessarily know a lot about certain topics. One of the speakers that will follow me actually has a sample of what's been done in other states, but this document would be created, as I said, by the Commissioner of Labor. They would consult with the director of, no, not the director, the Business Affairs Office of Workforce Opportunity, and they would then disseminate it, much like you see in most workplaces regarding wages, available benefits, and other relevant postings informing employees of how they can access their benefits or what their rights are to those benefits. So it's very straightforward, but as I said, given the number of veterans in our state, this is something that they may or may not realize is afforded to them, and it is. And given the sacrifices so many of them made, it's really important that we as a state at least apprise them of the opportunities to help and better themselves and their families. So with that, I'll conclude my testimony. As I said, you are going to receive document showing you a sample of what it would look like, and it would be much like the postings businesses already do. So it has nominal cost at best, but we'll do some good work. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Do we have any questions? Seeing none, have a great day.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm a little back and forth.
Yep, hurry back. David Della Sola?
You got it, thank you.
Hi, David. How you doing?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'd like to thank the committee for allowing me to speak in support of SB 588 relative to employer notice of veterans benefits and services. My name is David Della Sola, and I am a member of the United Steelworkers, and I reside in Derry, New Hampshire. If SB 588 were to become law, the state of New Hampshire would then create a posting of veterans benefits, services, and crisis hotline numbers. This posting would then be added to the mandatory posts that are attached to all employer bulletin boards, i.e. the minimum wage boards. We feel that this is a great way for our veterans in the workplace to access all the important benefits and services that are there for them and that they are entitled to. The United Steelworkers started this campaign policy last year, and the goal is to have this veterans posting on employer bulletin boards in all 50 states and territories. The state of New York was the first to pass this veterans bill, and I believe there are 7 other states that have passed a version of the bill in one form or another. We would certainly love for the state of New Hampshire to be added to the list. I passed out as an example the post that the state of New York came up with, so you would have an idea of what SB 588 is trying to accomplish. We feel that this is a simple but important bill and urge this committee to vote ought to pass and send it to the Senate floor. I want to thank Senator Soucy, Senator D'Alessandro, AFL-CIO Glenn Brackett, and I want to thank this committee for your time. And if there are no questions, if you other United Steelworkers, veterans of steel, would like to testify in support of SB 88. Thank you.
Thank you, David. I see no questions. Have a great day. Thanks for coming. Paul Morenzi. Morning, Paul. How you doing?
Good morning. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate Commerce Committee. Thank you for allowing me to speak on behalf of SB 588. My name is Paul Morenzi. I'm a proud member of the United Steelworkers and a veteran of the United States Army Reserve. I served for a total of 12 years. While serving in the military, your pay is not great, but you earn many worthwhile benefits. These benefits are paid for by the U.S. taxpayers, and the money is allotted to different programs to serve the veteran community. If a program is not used, its funding is reduced or cut. The reason this happens to some programs is because either the veterans don't know about the program or can't figure out how or where to get information to access it. At the time when the military members are ETSing from their service, whether it's from a stateside, foreign, or combat deployment, you have mountains of paperwork and files to go over. Pay files, insurance, health forms, gear turn-in paperwork, etc. And also the information about the different benefits that you earned. This information can be overwhelming for some, and others are only half listening because they're young and in the best shape of their lives and feel invincible. They're not thinking about health and other benefits. They're more concerned with getting home to their significant others, family, friends, and going out to have a beer at the local pub with their buddies. But as time goes on, they get married, have children, grow older, and may have health issues, employment issues, or need legal assistance. This is when they need some of those benefits that they earned. They do not always remember how or where to find or access them. For veterans who may be struggling with physical or mental health issues, knowing where to get the help is extremely important, and in some cases it could be a life or death situation. Also, there's many scams out there that prey on veterans, so it's important that the information they get is legitimate. That's why SB 588 is so important. These postings hanging in the workplace will list and steer veterans and their families to legitimate websites and contacts to get the information to help. By having it posted in the workplace, it will be there to help the people who need it. That's why I'm asking you to support what I consider a no-brainer of a bill. It is a bill that will have minimal cost and will have the ability to help so many. Right now, this veterans information poster is being discussed in many states. I personally hope it becomes a national law because it's that important. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Seeing no questions, appreciate it. I'm surprised your wife would let you out to a pub anyways, but.
Thank you.
Tracy, is it Gagliardi? It's in the ballpark. I'll work on it. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. I'd like to thank the New Hampshire Senate for hearing us today on Bill SB 588. My name is Tracy Gagliardi, and I'm here to represent the United Steelworkers Union, and I'm also here as Tech Sergeant Gagliardi from the United States Air Force 102nd Security Forces Squadron, and also I'm a resident of New Hampshire. I come from a military family. My dad was a Marine, my brother is Army, my son is also a Marine, and currently I'm serving in the Air Force National Guard. So when this bill was presented, it hit home. My dad struggled with finances, PTSD from Vietnam, and his health over the years before he passed in 2019. He was old school, no idea who to talk to, what numbers to call, and what he was even entitled to. This bill would certainly help his generation and the generations to follow. All you have to do is scan a QR code on the provided posting, and everything you need is right there. My dad, being the older generation, had no idea what his benefits were or what he was entitled to when he passed. When he passed, my mom had no idea what she was entitled to. To me, that just isn't fair. A man who served 17 years in the military deserves to know what his benefits are. Having this posting makes it easier for our service members, past, present, and the future. And let's be honest, we are in an era where conflict is inevitable. We are sending our brothers, sisters, sons, daughters to fight for our country. Let's make it easy for them to transition back into civilian life. Make it easy for them to get the benefits they're entitled to and what they fought for. Coming home from deployment or war isn't an easy transition for most. Seeing things that the average person doesn't see or doing things the average person doesn't do makes it a hard transition back into the civilian lifestyle. When our troops raise their right hand and take that oath of enlistment, right there they lose their freedom, whether it be 4 years, 6 years, or even 30 more. They sacrifice their entire life, family, holidays, birthdays, graduations, weddings, births, the list goes on. They sacrifice everything to protect this country. The least we can do is put a simple posting up so they can easily access the help that they need. Thank you.
Thank you very much. No questions. Have a great day. Appreciate it. Kevin Grady, this is an easy name right there. Mr. Grady, how you doing this morning?
I'm well, thank you very much, Senator.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you too, sir. Ladies and gentlemen of the committee, for the record, my name is Kevin Grady. I am a 25-year Air Force veteran, and I'm a 25-year veteran of the resident of the town of Hokinson, New Hampshire. Today, I'm here representing the 20 member organizations of the State Veterans Advisory Committee. For those of you unfamiliar with what we do, we're chartered by RSA 115:A-8 to speak for the veteran community, and our members include the organizations that would be familiar to you, the Disabled American Veterans, the VFW, the Legion. I represent the Air and Space Forces Association. We strongly support this bill. There was a companion bill similar to this in the House Bill 1023, which was left for interim study when this bill came along, that really only addressed the PTSD issues. And it was the opinion of our committee that more people than just veterans have PTSD. So this is a much better bill in terms of educating folks. We feel like that with the addition of the PACT Act coming out, which helps our veterans that have been exposed to toxins around the world through their military service, and with some executive actions that have made more people eligible for services, this is a great way to get the word out to our veteran population that these services are available to them. So in conclusion, when you find a bill that does great things for veterans, that doesn't cost a lot of money, that has strong bipartisan support, you're all in. That's really all I wanted to tell you this morning, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Grady. You have a great day.
Thanks, Senator.
John Garrigan. Morning, Mr. Garrigan. How you doing?
Well, my name is John Garrigan. I'm General Counsel for the New Hampshire Department of Labor. We appear neutrally on the bill. I'm here to answer any questions that you have. But first, I'd like to just lay out just a little bit of information about posters and what we do with posters and how we enforce posters. There are 7 posters that the department requires workplaces to post. 6 of those are publicly available on our website. They deal with information on wage and hour laws, information on classifying employees, toxic materials in the workplace, whistleblower protections, and the like. There's an additional poster regarding workers' compensation that's available through insurance carriers. This is not a big area of enforcement for us. We don't get that many complaints. When we do receive information, or if our inspectors are out and notice that posters aren't necessarily there or maybe not publicly available, we engage in an education first strategy where we'll talk to the employer. We'll provide them with copies of the posters electronically so that they can disseminate them. After that, if a formal action has to be taken under the law, we have to engage in a warning first for this kind of conduct. Any subsequent violations could be punishable with a civil penalty of up to $2,500. In recent memory, I polled the office. That hasn't happened too often. Usually employers are happy to work with us on that. employers are allowed to provide these posters electronically to their employees, either on an internal intranet website or through their own company website or through some other means. That doesn't have to be a physical poster that's posted, though many companies do engage with that. So the cost to the department is very minimal. These posters, I have one copy of. This is typically what they look like. These aren't complex documents or big. They're supposed to be easy to disseminate and for companies to print and at very cost efficient. So thank you. So the cost to our department is very minimal, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Garrigan. Seeing none, you have a great day.
Thank you, you too.
Does anyone else wish to testify on 588 if you didn't check off speaking? Gladly listen to you now. Seeing none, that ends the hearing on 588. I'm going to just stay here because it'll be a nightmare. I'm going to give you the gavel. I know you want the gavel. Yeah, they'll become. I'm just going to stay here. No, she isn't. Whatever you want to do. Whatever you want. Yeah, I'll take it back, sure. We're gonna try to be, yeah. I'm gonna only be a minute because there's really no reason to. Unless you don't see him, unless he didn't show. No, that would be his last name. No, yeah, no, that's his first name. No. He might not be here, here's coming from. Okay. Maybe he'll show up later, maybe he won't. Okay, go with him next and then.
All right. Good morning, all. I would like to open the hearing on Senate Bill 516 FN and ask the sponsor of the bill, Senator Gannon, to please present the legislation.
Thank you. I am Senator Bill Gannon. I represent District 23. We call it the wine country in Sandown. We're aware, as everyone up in the Senate, I'm not sure if you people are, in the House, there was an indefinite postponement on the bill by quite a number of votes. So I'm going to be very brief because I have a reality of where the bill is going. But seeing that we have everyone here on both sides, we're going to continue, though in a briefer version. My 5 pages will be 1 instead of my normal windbag lawyery stuff. Anyways, 14 words sum up this bill. The bill prohibits collective bargaining agreements that require employees to join a labor union. It recognizes the right to join a labor union is freedom of choice. It also, though, protects those who do not want labor union affiliation. One should not have deductions taken from their pay unless they choose to have it done. A person's dues should not be taken and used for interests they might oppose. If a union is offered a product that a person wants, they will voluntarily join it. In fact, they'll line up to join your union. Labor unions can choose to represent only their members and non-members, and they can allow non-members to bargain for themselves. Personally, I was forced to join the IBEW at a young age, but could not receive most of the benefits and was told, you're lucky you're getting the good pay, you don't get the benefits. My wife at her first job encountered the same problem with the union, and others are going to testify after me that the benefits in many states have been significant and that most new companies are looking to form in right-to-work states. At this time, I will keep it really short today for the reasons we talked about earlier. Do you have any questions, Mr. Chair?
No questions, Senator?
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Senator. We have 18 folks desiring to speak this morning, so just a couple of requests if we could. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less and try not to repeat too much what has been said before you. And with that, I'd like to ask McCain Boddicker to please join us. You want?
Thanks. My name is McCain Bedecker. I am Executive Director of New England Citizens for Right to Work. Here to speak in favor of the bill. The freedom of association that it advances. Protect workers from being compelled to pay union dues or fees without their consent in order to work for a living. Finally making New Hampshire a right to work state. Fortunately, under current law in New Hampshire, a union boss can claim monopoly bargaining power over dissenting workers, taking away the individual's right to negotiate for themselves. The union boss then demands the government enforced authority to extract mandatory dues or fees from that unwilling worker, adding insult to injury. This poll showed the vast majority of voters agree, just plain wrong. This bill would guarantee workers the right to decide for themselves whether or not a labor union deserves their financial support, same as any other private organization. Once, when asked if he would support a controversial resolution at a national union convention, former Iowa State Education Association Executive Director Fred Comer said, "Hell no, we don't support it. Iowa's a right to work state. We have to earn our membership. If we supported that, we'd lose too many members." See, without right to work protections, there's little incentive for union officials to offer a good service to their members. They can compel people to pay them either way. Fact is, good unions don't need forced dues, and bad unions don't deserve them. Furthermore, it's clear the right to work would help New Hampshire's economic outlook from 2012 to 22. The number of people employed grew 6.7% in New Hampshire and 8.6% in all such forced unionism states, while right to work states enjoyed 15.7%, more than double ours. That's no surprise because area development magazine surveys have consistently found anywhere from 50 to 80% of business leaders and site selection consultants consider a state's right to work status either important or very important to their decisions. Furthermore, Merrick data reveals residents of right to work states enjoy roughly $2,600 more in average cost of living adjusted disposable income per person per year. It's more than $10,000 in purchasing power for a family of four. So clearly, not only is right to work the morally right thing to do, but protecting this freedom will also help New Hampshire workers and the New Hampshire economy. Therefore, on behalf of our tens of thousands of members and supporters across the state, I urge the committee to support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Shanley, no questions. Thank you, Mr. Boddicker. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Glenn Brackett. Morning, Mr. Brackett.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Glenn Brackett. I've had the privilege of representing the workers, the union workers here in New Hampshire, the AFL-CIO, for the last 9 years. 45-year member of Senator Gannon's favorite union, the IBEW. I'm here today to oppose against Senate Bill 516. This is the Senate version of right to work. Now, every new legislature in the last 35 years has seen this attack on workers, and every legislature, regardless of party, which party's in the majority, has rejected it. In fact, in 2019, 2021, and just several weeks ago in 2024, the House rejected the very same bill. Our governor, Chris Sununu, has gone on record and has declared that, quote, "there is no need to pursue any additional legislation when it comes to right to work." Our elected leaders have repeatedly defeated this piece of legislation because they understand that the free market does not need government intrusion into business-to-business private contracts. While out-of-state billionaires and DC lobbyists continue to enlist legislators to introduce identical bills year in and year out, our elected representatives of both political parties have voted to defeat them. It's because it's clear that New Hampshire government should not meddle in how private businesses in this state work together for the mutual benefit. Contracts between private employees and labor unions are business-to-business agreements that this legislature should live to the free market. You know, we have the building trades in New Hampshire have an apprentice program. And the apprentice program, what it does is we take people off the street and we train them over 5 years to become valuable members of the community that are trained and qualified to do every job function that is required in this state. There is no resources given to us by the state government. There is no resources given to us by the federal government. We have signed contracts with our employers where we agree to split costs and we train to the employer's standards. And we train the best workers in this state. I don't know of any other business where the government would come in and say, you two private businesses, you can't have that agreement even though you've had it for more than 60 years. I don't understand, gentlemen and ladies, why is the state government getting involved in a contract between two private businesses? I urge this committee to think about that. In a free market, this is not the way the free market operates. So thank you very much for this opportunity, and I'll be glad to answer any questions if you have any.
Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Is it Lance Mazzarelli? We'll come back to you. Kim Hokinson? Okay. Want to go grab her? Thanks. Don't worry, take your time. We're good. Morning.
Good morning. Sorry to
That's okay.
run in, but it's a popular room today. Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Kim Hokinson. I'm the Northern New England Regional Manager for the North Atlantic States Regional Council of Carpenters. I reside in Nashua, New Hampshire, and I'm here today to express my strong opposition to SB 516 FN, so-called Right to Work bill. In essence, Right to Work represents a direct assault on the foundations of unions, with its primary objective being financial destabilization of these organizations. Contrary to its misleading title, the legislation does not aim to enhance the freedom of workers, but rather seeks to undermine unions by eliminating the requirement for workers in a collective bargaining unit to share the costs associated with their union negotiation and representation. The implications of SB 516 FN extend beyond the individual member of our union by adversely affecting the contractors we work with. Right to Work warrants an unwanted intrusion of government interference into the free market, jeopardizes the ability of our businesses to freely negotiate contracts in the best interests of their companies. The decisions to engage in collective bargaining and determining mutual beneficial agreements should remain with the private sector. The passage of Right to Work would impede our businesses' autonomy and hinder their capacity to make decisions that align with their unique circumstances. This level of state intervention is not conducive to the values we hold dear here in New Hampshire. Additionally, it is essential to recognize that Right to Work legislation has been shown to result in lower wages for workers. Statistically, states with Right to Work laws experience wage rates that are 7.5% lower than their counterparts. At a time when workers are struggling with the challenges of inflation and increased costs for essential needs like healthcare, housing, food, and utilities, advocating for new laws that further decrease wages is counterproductive and damaging to the well-being of our workforce. I firmly believe that SB 516 FN is detrimental to the interests of New Hampshire businesses, workers, and the overall prosperity of our state. I urge you to consider consider the adverse effects this legislation would have on our communities and vote against the passage of Right to Work. Thank you very much. Thank you. Would you like a copy? Yeah. Thank you. Yep.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Thomas Edon. I'm a lifelong New Hampshire resident and proud IBW union member. Thank you for letting me speak here today and share my opposition to the right to work bill. New Hampshire residents are hardworking people. We need to keep our valuable workforce in our own state. Every day, droves of New Hampshire tradespeople travel to Massachusetts for good paying union jobs. I can say this with certainty because many of them are my personal friends. Right to work will only drive more New Hampshire workers to Mass. Right to work's primary intention is to destroy unions from within. It would be unsustainable for a local union to financially support members who are able to opt out of paying union dues. The whole principle of the idea is nonsensical. Let me ask you, if you had a company that provided goods or services, would you let the customers decide whether or not they want to pay for said goods and services? Most of the states that have right to work laws are in the South. The farthest north state on the East Coast is Delaware. A survey conducted with 9 right to work states, Alabama, Arizona, Arkansas, Florida, Kansas, Mississippi, Nebraska, Oklahoma, and Tennessee, revealed some serious health and safety and economic concerns. The lowest uninsured percentage of the 9 right to work states surveyed was 7.1%, with the highest coming in at 13.8%. Nationally, the 11 highest uninsured population percentages belong to right to work states. Infant mortality rates from 5.47 to 9.39 per 1,000 live births. Work rate fatality rates are highest in right to work states. In fact, 8 of the top 10 states in this category are right to work states. The 9 right to work states in this survey ranked from number 21 to number 49 in most educated, with only 3 of them being in the top 50th percentile nationally. The poverty rates in these states range from between 10.8% to 19.4%. There are no right to work states in New England. The results in the aforementioned categories above in New England are much better than the right to work states. The New Hampshire uninsured population percentage is only 6.3%, ranking 14 nationally. 3 of the top 10 least uninsured states are in New England. Infant mortality ranking in New Hampshire is the 5th lowest in the country. New England has 3 of the top 10 in this category as well. Workplace fatalities for New Hampshire in 2022 were 19. Rhode Island had 7 and Vermont had 11. Right to work Florida was 307 and right to work Texas was 578. New England had 4 of the top 10 most educated states in the country. New Hampshire came in at number 8. New Hampshire has the 5th lowest poverty rate, and New England, once again, in the top 3, has 3 states, in the top 10 lowest poverty rates. What all this means to me is that New Hampshire and New England are a great place to live, work, and raise a family. It is pretty clear that the right to work states have a lower quality of life than we do around here. Right to work is nothing more than a corporate scheme to weaken unions and diminish the middle class workforce. Senators, I urge you to stand with the working people of New Hampshire and not big corporations and keep right to work out of New Hampshire. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and
Good morning.
committee members. My name is David Spiculi. I'm the president of the New Hampshire Building Trade and Construction Council and a member of Labor's Local 976 out of Portsmouth, New Hampshire. New Hampshire Building and Construction Trade Council represents nearly 2,000 working families in New Hampshire. We are an umbrella organization of local construction unions in partnership with private contractors and small businesses to provide the higher standards for workers in the construction industry. Our mission is to provide highly trained workers for construction projects while creating a fairer and more just environment in the construction industry. The workers in the trades that my organization represents have special skills and expertise, which are required through years of training on the job and through education. This education and job training to workers is provided through funds raised by members in collective bargaining agreements at zero cost to the taxpayer. This bill would destroy the funding and the training mechanisms that would ultimately end up cost more money to taxpayers for poorly constructed projects and the need for publicly funded programs for workers who want to become tradesmen. Our workers are the best in the construction business. Through contracts and agreements with private businesses and owners, The unions make up the New Hampshire Building and Construction Trades Council have created a system to staff projects of all sizes with workers who have received years of training in their respective fields. This is why our workers are so coveted for projects such as the construction work that is to be done for the new biofabrication cluster in Manchester, which is set to become a global leader in regenerative tissue and organs. The biofabric cluster, which is the recipient of over $40 million in funding, has entered into a memorandum of understanding with New Hampshire Building Trades for workers to do construction and the fitting of the facilities that will drive this cutting-edge technology. Senate Bill 516 FN, the right to work, if passed, will strip workers of protections afforded to them by these agreements between two private business entities, as we have set in other states that have passed similar laws, will also lower wages and endangers workers' safety and health by destroying the mechanisms that we have built for training these highly skilled workers. We see no reason why the state should be interfering in the business of decisions of two private businesses and cannot think of another situation where the live free or die state, the government feels the need to get between employers and employees' relationship. This is not the way that we do things in New Hampshire. You will likely hear from the ABC, which is the Associated Builders and Contractors, who support this legislation. They are also a member-driven organization that requires dues for services to provide for their membership. If their members stop paying dues, they will no longer provide services to their members. Therefore, with all this said, we respectfully ask you to vote ITL on S15.
Thank you for your testimony, David. Seeing no questions, you have a great day.
Thank you.
Aubrey Friedman. Good morning, sir.
Mr. Chairman, committee members, Aubrey Friedman, I live in Bridgewater, private citizen. I speak in support of this bill. Let's honor individuality and let people choose whether they want to join a union or not. And those who choose not to can negotiate directly with the employer. The thing is, we're all different, and people bring different skills. We're not all the same. And frankly, some workers are smarter and work harder than others. Why should they all get paid the same thing? So one should have enough confidence to negotiate directly with your employer. Frankly, I never had representation as an employee for like 45 years, and I always managed to get what I wanted. If I didn't think it was right, I just, looked elsewhere. So you should have enough confidence to not need representation. There's nothing wrong with representation, but you shouldn't be forced to be part of a union. Let's see what else here. The unions themselves, I'm kind of neutral on them. It's the collective part that everybody's forced to join. That's the problem. So if you say 95% join and 5% prefer to negotiate directly with the employer, it's not going to hurt the 95. They're just not going to get the same benefits. Maybe they'll get better benefits or less, whatever. It's up to them. Why force everyone to be part of it? And by the way, the Janus decision 2018, we have about 6 years of data now, because originally everybody said, well, that's going to kill the unions. Actually, if you look at the data nationally and even by state and so forth, they've held pretty steady. It is true they were forced to work a little bit harder to convince people to take the union membership. But I've gone to these right to know hearings, and frankly, the arguments to join a union are pretty good. So most people will choose to join the union. A few won't. I'd be one of those that wouldn't. But still, it's nice to have the option. The unions are not going to go away. They're still going to be here. They might have a few less members. So I say it's a good bill. A little bit of worker freedom is a good thing, and that's why I support it.
Thank you, Mr. Friedman. Any questions? Seeing none, you have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill Leary. Morning, Mr. Leary. Doing good.
I would like to thank the committee for letting me speak today. My name is Phil Leary. I'm a resident taxpayer in the state of New Hampshire. and a member of District Council 35 Painters and Allied Trades, also the Vice President of New Hampshire Building and Construction Trades Council. I've been involved with organized labor for 23 years, being a part of a union and always knowing that a union has my back and bargains on my behalf for all the great wages and benefits that I receive for myself and my family is the greatest feeling to have. Knowing that I can retire at a decent age is what I strive for. Every worker already has the right to either join a union or not. The New Hampshire motto is live free or die. Being in a union and paying dues is for the union to collectively bargain on your behalf. It's no different than any other membership fee you would have to pay at a golf course, gym, Costco's, BJ's, etc. Or the Chamber of Commerce, and I quote, "To get started, complete your application. We will collect your $25 application fee. Once we review your application, we'll invoice you for your membership dues, and we are off and running." Right to work has actually nothing to do with worker freedom and everything to do with breaking organized labor and strengthening corporate control over politics. Workers have very little bargaining power in the United States. In most developed countries, workers have more say in working conditions than tend to be better. In America, unless you're in a union, the workplace dynamic gives all the power to the owner. If the business interests are not checked by the bargaining power of labor unions and other worker groups, then we will quickly become a developing country. The safest, most trained, skilled labor is that of union labor. We fight every day, not just for union labor, but for labor in general. This so-called right to work bill is nothing as it reads. It is a right to work for less. Studies show that workers in right to work states make $10,000 less a year, while the CEOs get 320 times richer off the back of the workers. Unions make up 7% of the workforce in this country. In the construction field, only about 4%. This country was built on union labor. It's because of organized labor and the right to collectively bargain is why we have 8-hour workdays, 5-day work weeks, 40-hour work weeks, sick leave, etc. This is why we have the safest workers and work sites going today, and this is all factual information. Working people in right-to-work states have consistently low quality of life. When you compare right-to-work states to free bargaining states, the differences are not comparable. They have less access to health care, poor education systems for children, the poverty rate is higher, and the risk of workplace fatalities is 49% higher. When working people can't freely speak up together and negotiate for higher safety standards, better training, fair wages, and health benefits. And this will impact all of us, union and non-union alike. Right to work will lower wages, cause higher workplace injuries, and increase poverty. Will this make our state more attractive? I don't think so. I urge you to vote no on Senate Bill 516. Right to work is wrong for New Hampshire.
Thank you, Mr. Leary. Seeing no questions, you have a great day.
Thank you.
Billy Lang. Okay. Is Dr. Gail Rennie? Oh, Kenny, I'm sorry. Oh, you're Billy Lang.
Billy Lang, yeah.
Okay. We'll come back to you, Dr. Kenny. State your name and
My name's Billy Lang. I'm a citizen, homeowner. I live in Derry, New Hampshire. I'm also a business agent for the Painters and Allied Trades. In that capacity, I represent just around 5,000 members, a few hundred of which live throughout the state of New Hampshire. I'm not going to cite a bunch of stats and statistics for you guys today. You guys know all the statistics about right to work. I'm going to talk about what this union's done for me and my family. Sorry, I'm not great with public speaking, and the reason that is I'm not a politician. I'm not a union boss or anything like that. I'm a guy that learned, I'm a kid with a high school diploma that learned to trade with his hands, allowed him to buy a home, allowed me to set my wife and daughter up for, to be able to have a good future. So I'm sorry, I'm rambling a little bit here.
you're doing great.
So unions, right? Right to work. It's attacking unions. The difference between a union job and a non-union job, specifically in my industry, which is the construction industry, but almost all industries, my union makes my job a career instead of a job. And that's a huge thing because right now we talk a lot about job creation, how important it is. We need jobs, jobs, jobs. We don't need more jobs. jobs like Dunkin' Donuts, Walmart, these bottom lower paying jobs that don't actually sustain a family. We don't need more of those. We need more union careers. And I say that the difference between a job and a career is that a career has an endpoint with dignity, and a job doesn't. You work until the day you die. I'm just here to say, please vote against right to work on behalf of my membership. Thank you.
You spoke really well, Bill.
Thanks.
No problem. You might have a career in politics.
Oh, great. Thanks.
Dr. Kinney? Morning, Dr. Kinney.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Gail Kenny. I am a resident of Canaan. But before I start my own testimony, I've been asked by 13 Jewish clergy in New Hampshire just to submit a statement. So I just want to put that into the record. I won't read it, but what they did is they wrote for you why in the Jewish tradition, the core of the Jewish tradition back centuries or millennia, they have come calls upon them to oppose right to work. And they just end saying, the right to work bill, Senate 516, is an attempt to weaken the ability of working people to organize. It would divide workers wherever unions exist so that their collective voice is substantially diminished. As Jews, we stand with all working people and oppose Senate Bill 516. Signed by Rabbi Dan Aronson of Keene, Rabbi Beth Davidson of Manchester, Cantor Marlena Firstman of Bartlett, Rabbi Jan Katz of Laconia, Rabbi Donna Kirschbaum of Bethlehem, Rabbi Peter Levy of Derry, Cantor Amy Benner-Mitz of Sugar Hill, Rabbi Robin Nashi of Concord, Cantor Shira Nashi of Concord, Rabbi Mark Philippe of Manchester, Rabbi Joshua Segal of Bennington, Cantor Wendy Sherman of Guilford, and Rabbi Kaya Stern Kaufman of Portsmouth. So I will submit that for the record on their behalf. So I am a pastor with the Meriden Congregational Church, and I'm here today speaking on behalf of the Economic Justice Team of New Hampshire Conference United Church of Christ. So the UCC, also, many people may know them as the Congregational Churches of the state. The UCC is the largest Protestant denomination in the state. And as you just heard through the Jewish clergy, multiple faith traditions from Protestants to Catholics to Jews and more have been vigorous in their opposition to the deceptively labeled right to work bills whenever they have appeared in the general court. And there's a group of about 400 to 500 clergy and lay folks in New Hampshire that have come together, call themselves the New Hampshire Voices of Faith. And they have submitted a statement as well. So I'll submit that into the record. But let me just start by saying, what is this bill really? And where did it come from? And let me just start by saying, what this bill does is it says that employers, even if they may wish to, they may choose to do so in negotiation with their unions, cannot include in their contracts with their unionized workers. So we're talking about just employers with unions in the state of New Hampshire. We're not talking about non-union employers, are prohibited in this live free or die state to put a certain contract clause into their collectively bargained agreement with their workers, saying that all workers will either pay dues or just provide a modest share of what their personal share would be for the cost only of collective bargaining and administering the contract, nothing else. And unionized employers very often, and there's, by the way, there's an out. If somebody really opposes, an individual worker opposes on religious grounds or otherwise that they don't want to do this, they can so file. The reason employers do this is because they believe it is in their interest as employers to have their workforce feel cohesive and unified, and understanding that this is a clause that does this in their own workplaces. It is their choice. And I also want to say, no employer in the state of New Hampshire who has a union, if they don't want this clause in their contract, they won't agree to it in the collective bargaining table. So they don't, and there is not a single employer with unionized employees in the state of New Hampshire that has come to you saying save me from myself. This is in my contract. I've bargained for it, but I didn't really want it there. So can you pass a bill saying that I don't have to put it there? No one is asking you to save, no employer is asking you to save them from themselves in this regard. That's what this bill does. And just really quickly, where did this come from? Who dreamed this up initially? Right to work as a concept bubbled up in this country in the 1940s, and it came out of the Jim Crow South. And a very prominent industrialist and national lobbyist named Vance Muse initially dreamed this up. He was from Texas, and what he saw was that black workers and white workers in the South were coming together to unionize together. And so he said, we've got to come up with something that divides these black and white workers before they become powerful as a collective union, both coming together. And so he said, if we set up these bills saying that nobody has to provide union dues if they don't feel like it, and then if we encourage all the white workers not to pay their union dues, then that creates a divide in the workplace, even if theoretically there is a union. And with that divide, they are not powerful enough to negotiate decent wages, benefits, and working conditions. And so he said, he spoke before Congress, and he says, I'm a white supremacist, and this kind of bill is necessary in order to maintain white supremacy in this land. And then in one of his pieces of literature, he actually wrote, we need right to work laws because otherwise white women and white men will be forced into organizations, meaning unions, who, with black African apes, whom they will have to call brother or lose their jobs. That's where this came from. This came from division. And today it remains about division. It is about dividing workers so that they are less powerful. In this state, in our live free or die libertarian oriented state, you don't need to tell employers what to do and what not to do when they are collectively bargaining with their employees. They will choose. They know what's best for them. Let them continue to figure out what's best for them. So I have written testimony, and then I will provide the other two as well. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Kenny. Any questions? Seeing none, you have a great day. Greg Moore. Morning, Mr. Moore. How are you doing?
Doing well, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here today. For the record, my name is Greg Moore. I'm a regional director for Americans for Prosperity, and I'm here today to testify in support of this legislation. This is a seasoned group of legislators. You have heard all the arguments for and against this legislation, and I don't know that reiterating any more of those another time is going to do a whole lot to advance this discussion. What I'd like to do then is to offer a few anecdotes of some experience that I've had relative to this issue. I'll give an example of one of our activists who works in a union shop where he pays an agency fee. And that shop actually had negotiations. There were a larger group of people who were on an old defined benefit system, and he was part of a newer group, a younger group, a smaller group that was on a defined contribution. Like most employers, they shifted from a defined benefit to a defined contribution system. Well, when the negotiations came up and they were looking to give something, the union leadership, which was comprised of more veteran workers, looked for more money sent into the defined benefit program at the expense of people who are receiving a defined contribution. Now, in a right-to-work environment, if someone were to do that, what would happen is all the people who were in that smaller group who got nothing out of the negotiation would leave, and they wouldn't have to pay a penny to that union because that union wasn't negotiating in their best interest. So one of the things right-to-work does is it ensures that people negotiating are doing it for truly all of the people within the union, or else they're going to lose that revenue. A second experience that I could tell you was when I was working for the House of Representatives, and we were debating this issue in 2011. And employers coming up to see the speaker off the street, literally walking in off the street, explaining that if we were passed right to work, that they would shift their business. Now, these employers had some business in New Hampshire and some business in other Northeast states. And what they said is they would consolidate their businesses to New Hampshire if we were to pass right to work. And of course, you ask why, and the traditional answer that most opponents of right to work say, well, because you pay less. Well, they said absolutely not. One of the fundamental reasons why they think is, in addition to the workplace harmony that I mentioned in an earlier example, a secondary issue is the fact that, again, a lot of times the bargaining units tend to be made up of more seasoned veteran people who negotiate for more resources for senior veteran people. And the problem that creates is it makes it a challenge on the recruiting side because the younger workers are getting paid less. And it's a problem for both recruitment and retention of those younger workers. And it creates an imbalance within the workforce. And I'll offer a third and final anecdote experience of mine. And this one's a little more personal. When I was working as a director of the Department of Health and Human Services in 2005 and 2006, when the state implemented an agency fee while I was there. I was unclassified, so it didn't affect me. But having one of my employees come into my office in tears over this issue of having money taken out of her paycheck because of this implementation of an agency fee. So that stuck with me and continues to stick with me. It's one of the reasons why I personally find this issue one that's of great import. So with that, as I said, I'm not going to throw any data, statistics, or facts at you. I'm just going to give you some personal examples of what I've seen. So I'd be happy to take any questions.
No.
Thank you
very much, Mr. Moore. Have a good day. Janet Schaefer. Morning, Ms. Schaefer.
Good morning. How are you?
Doing good. Thank you.
My name is Jan Schaefer. I live in Warner, and I do some work with the New Hampshire AFL-CIO. I am, however, retired, happily. I actually wasn't going to testify, but a couple of things popped up in testimony that I want to just maybe correct or at least clarify. One thing is the gentleman from the, I think it was the New England Right to Work Committee, said something to the effect that unions may bargain for a select group and other workers can negotiate for themselves. So private sector unions are governed by the National Labor Relations Act. Public sector unions are governed by the state. Right to work is allowed under the National Labor Relations Act. But the other thing that happens is this so-called minority union, that the Right to Work Committee likes to talk about. There is nothing in the National Labor Relations Act that requires an employer to bargain with a minority union. In order for the employer to bargain, they would have to voluntarily agree to bargain. But in order to set up the bargaining relationship, the union has to show majority support. So they either have to get voluntary recognition once they prove majority support, or they go for an election and they have to win a majority. So that's how the law works. I want to be really clear about that. The second thing is that this whole discussion around what businesses look for, and I've said this, I have testified on Right to Work for over 30 years, but I have said this before about what businesses look for. It's many things. And just so you know, many places in the South offer huge tax breaks to employers to get them to move to the South. So the auto companies, big manufacturers, they offer incentives. New Hampshire doesn't do that. And Right to Work is not really the incentive that a couple $1 million is. And finally, actually I have two more things. One, Michigan just repealed Right to Work. But lastly, what the gentleman from AFP just said with his anecdotes about people he might know or may know or does know, and the whole discussion about a small group of workers being left behind in negotiations. Unions run as democracies. They are one of the most regulated organizations in this country. If you want to run for the bargaining committee, nobody checks your age. You can run for the bargaining committee. You can run for union office. In fact, most of the people here who testified already, who are business agents, are elected by their members. And so it's important to remember that as we move forward in this discussion. And I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Seeing no questions,
You're
you have a
welcome.
great day. Is it Claudia? I think it would be Lister. Oh, I'm way off. Okay. Morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Senator Gannon and members of the Senate Commerce Committee. I am Claudia Stell. I live in Ackworth. I'm a member of the Economic Justice Mission Group of the New Hampshire Conference of the United Church of Christ, and I did submit my testimony by email earlier today. I don't want to repeat all the things that people have said. We know that right to work, I believe, and a lot of other people believe, it's not good for the state. It's not good for our workers, and it's goes against our state culture, business practices, and our sense of freedom. Moreover, we know that it has a racist background. It's anti-union and anti-worker. People have testified that they have better training and better safety conditions in when their companies are unionized. I do want to point out that besides, we already know that workers in right-to-work states earn less than in states without right to work. I have previously testified before this committee that according to the New Hampshire Policy Institute, half of New Hampshire workers earn less than a living wage, and over a quarter state that they have difficulty meeting daily expenses. So we should be lifting up workers and giving them the respect and decent pay that they need, which is also important for their morale, and that is also important for their employers. The precarious financial situation of low-wage workers leads to food insecurity and housing insecurity, poor health and educational outcomes, and more need to seek public assistance, which is funded by the taxpayers, not the employers whose low wages cause those difficulties. I think right to work would just exacerbate that. And I'm sorry, I'm skipping because I don't want to repeat myself. Finally, I'd like to say that New Hampshire is a graying state. I think we all know that. And it's important to retain young people. Young people want good paying jobs, which will allow them to buy a car, rent a decent apartment, or buy a house, be able to raise children if they choose to have children, and as well as to be respected as employees and have the opportunity to grow and advance in their employment. My career has been in public education as a high school teacher and now as an adjunct in the community college system. And some of my students have become doctors and lawyers, mostly out of state. Some have become teachers and social workers, but we know that those people are not well paid for the quality of work that they're required to do and the hours that they have to put in. More work in retail as paraeducators and nursing assistants and other low-wage jobs. And rarely do I meet a former student like the young man I've met recently in his 20s who was so proud of himself. He's a member of the IBEW, and which has afforded him a good-paying job, training experience, possibilities and promotion opportunities, and retirement savings. I can't think of too many 20-year-olds who boast about that. And the opportunity to stay in his home community. We need young workers in the state of New Hampshire who will stay in their communities, to continue the culture, our Granite State culture, and to be the future of our state. So for the betterment of our workers and their safety, for fair business practices and the New Hampshire way, I ask you to vote this ITL. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll ask you a quick question.
Yes.
Just so we all stay awake. On right to work, no, I know you're awake. Were you talking in gross dollars as far as earnings, or were you accounting for different states having, in the southern states, the cost of living is much less? So were you just talking gross dollars when you're saying non-right to work states make more, or are you talking adjusted for cost of living? I just wondered what number you were coming, where that was coming from.
I think it's both.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Seeing no other questions, you have a great day.
Thank you.
Deborah House. Good morning, Ms. House.
Good morning. My name is Deborah House, and I am the elected president of the American Federation of Teachers, New Hampshire. I want to make a note of that elected part because, unlike previous speakers have mentioned, I'm not a union boss. Unions are workers' organizations where you have a voice and a vote in selecting who your leaders are. Our federation represents 3,700 members across the state, mostly in pre-K through 12 public education, as well as public universities and town employees. But we do also have one local that is private university, so it's university faculty at a private college. So we do have one contract that indeed has a fair share fee negotiated into it. So I am here on behalf of our members to express our fierce opposition to right to work, as well as our solidarity with all of our brothers and sisters in the New Hampshire AFL-CIO and the broader labor movement. Excuse me. I will not repeat all you've heard before, but we oppose this on the basis of it interferes in the negotiated agreements between employers and their employees as negotiated through their unions. There is no fair share or agency fee agreement ever put in place without the employer seeing some benefit from it. They agree to it through negotiations because it gives them a more professional workforce, a better trained workforce, a workforce with a higher safety record. There are all these reasons that employer will want to have that as part of their negotiated contract with a union. And the employees, of course, see a benefit from it because it helps them negotiate a better contract, helps them maintain their contract, it helps them run some of these training programs. So those are the reasons that these agreements get negotiated in. I want to also make the point that there's a difference between being a member of a union and paying a fee for a service that you're receiving a benefit from. Being a member does allow you full rights in the union. Among them, you are allowed to elect the people who represent you. You're allowed to run for office. You are also allowed to be part of that negotiating team if you put yourself forward to the other members to elect you. So we have defeated right to work time and time again, 32 times already in New Hampshire over the past 40 years. This is not the New Hampshire way of doing business. We do not insert the government into private business, into contracts between employers and employers. And this is not the time to change that tradition. We do not put the heavy hand of government into these negotiations, and it's not time to start. And we also do not tell workers to offer their services to their fellow workers for free. We do not have the state forcing that on others. So we urge you to find SB 516 inexpedient to legislate. Thank you, and I will pass this around.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Dr. Lisa Shapiro. I'm Chief Economist at Gallagher, Callahan, and Gartrell in Concord, New Hampshire, and I appear here today on behalf of the AFL-CIO in opposition to Senate Bill 516. Right-to-work advocates assert that right-to-work states outperform non-right-to-work states, and it would therefore be beneficial to the New Hampshire economy if right-to-work laws were passed, and that passing right-to-work laws enhance economic freedom. These arguments should be rejected on several grounds. And Mr. Chairman and members, I'm just going to summarize two and submit my testimony in writing. So argument one to take into account is the best science, the articles that are published in peer-reviewed journals and not just public policy shops, find that right to work, when it's adopted in states, lowers wage growth. For example, a 2019 Journal of Financial Economics article, the researchers reviewed nearly 20,000 collective bargaining agreements in states that had right to work over a 25-year period. And it found that in right to work states, there is a decrease in workers' wage growth and an increase in executive compensation. In 2023, Federal Reserve researchers closely analyzed wages in 6 states that have adopted right to work during the study period: Oklahoma, Indiana, Michigan, Wisconsin, West Virginia, and Kentucky. And they compared the conditions before and after adoption of right to work in those states and compared it with free bargaining states. And what they found in response to the adoption of right to work laws, that there was a statistically significant decline in real annual wages by almost $1,900. The second point I wanted to make is that, as a matter of principle, right to work is a state government intervention into private contracts, which reduces economic freedom. Now, don't just take my word for it. I'd ask you to consider a line of libertarian thought that strongly agrees with that statement. Milton Friedman is a well-known economist, and he advocated, as most of you are probably aware of, for free market capitalism. Him, along with other prominent libertarian thinkers, have been consistently against right to work for this reason. Right to work laws limit and restrict workers' and employers' freedom of contract. They substitute the decisions of politicians for the players in the marketplace, in the workplace. And finally, if you consider Cato Institute, well-known, supports libertarian views, free market, and they're strong advocates for right-to-work laws. And in a study that came out within the last few months, many of you may have saw reference to this, New Hampshire came out as #1 in freedom. Very proud of that, right? #1 in freedom, but we don't have right-to-work laws. So I went through that study carefully, and you'll find in there the quote admitting that, quote, right-to-work laws are controversial among libertarians. And in fact, in the report, they provide an alternative freedom index, which excludes right to work, recognizing that there's a line of libertarians that disagree with that. I have a few other points about the economy and growth. I think you've heard a lot from other people. I don't want to take up any more time, and I'll submit my testimony. If you have any questions, I'm happy to take them. Thank you.
Morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I appreciate you hearing all of our testimonies here today. There was a few. I'm here to speak in opposition of SB 315, not only as a member of the body on the other side of the wall, but as a member of the Carpenters Union for 28 years, where I've been paying dues voluntarily. As you probably have heard so many times here, right to work has been brought up since about 1979 and has been defeated no matter which side holds the majority. Matter of fact, when HB 1377, very similar bill, came to the body on the other side, we kept that tradition alive, and in a bipartisan vote of 212 to 168, it was indefinitely postponed. If this hearing is anything like the one on the other side that the Labor Committee faced, which took 2 sessions and over 5 hours of testimony, most, if not all, of the less than 50 people that spoke in support of HB 1377 would not be affected by the passing of this bill, similar to if this bill was passed. The sponsors that own companies are non-union, so I'm not really sure why they're in favor of it and why they even bring it up. Right to Work New England, which I believe is based in Virginia, stated that lots of facts, like businesses are naturally inclined to locate to right to work states. But when Governor Sununu spoke in his State of the State address, he said that many companies have been coming to New Hampshire, and we're still not a right to work state, thankfully. The Association of Builders and Contractors, the ABC, also consists of many open shop construction companies. The president and CEO said that union bosses use intimidation and coercion to force people to join unions and pay dues. When we asked for proof, none was given. And by the way, all the members of the ABC paid dues to be members. Of the 1,400 plus members of the public that testified in opposition on the other side, most were union members, and their lives would be changed for the worst if this bill was to pass. These people are our real constituents, the middle class, the ones that pay taxes, the ones that vote for us. Not the ones that claim unions are irrelevant but come back every year or two to fight like hell to pass this bill and to get rid of unions. I ask that you listen to our real constituents, our predecessors, and the body on the other side of the wall, and please vote either inexpedient to legislate or, even better, indefinite postponement. Thank you. Thanks again.
Morning. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. Dear Senators, I'm here to oppose Senate Bill 516 FN, the so-called Right to Work Bill. My name is Robert Plunkett. I am currently the Recording Secretary for Interior Systems Local 352 of the North Atlantic States Carpenters Union. I currently reside in Northfield, New Hampshire, and have called New Hampshire home since 1995. I graduated Pinkerton Academy in 1997 and got married shortly thereafter. I went on to college, during which time I had 2 children. Life, as you can imagine, was quite difficult to balance. I eventually divorced and remarried and had another child. By 2008, I was having to work 2 jobs to barely pay our bills with little, with little to no benefits or retirement options. I had to apply for food stamps and financial assistance. In May of 2012, I lost my primary job. Then in August of 2012, I lost my second job when Stop & Shop closed all their stores in New Hampshire. At this time, I decided to find a job that would provide better pay and benefits and allow me to actually be home to be a father to my children. I worked through a temp agency while applying to the Carpenter's Apprentice Program. I was accepted and began work on July 1st, 2015, a date I will never forget. Since joining the Brotherhood, I have begun a most rewarding career. I'm making 2 to 3 times more money than I ever have. I have great benefits and a retirement package as well. My family is able to get the medical services they need. If Right to Work is passed in the state of New Hampshire, all these goals and achievements and dreams will be short-lived and vanish. At its core, Right to Work is an assault on unions, inaccurately displayed as an initiative to enhance worker freedom. Its true objective is to cripple unions financially by eliminating the obligation for workers in a collective bargaining union to share the cost associated with negotiation and representation. It's no hidden fact that in other states where Right to Work was passed, wages and benefits eventually dropped, leaving many hardworking Americans fearing for their futures. Not a single state in the Northeast currently enforces a right-to-work law. Despite persistent endeavors by special interest groups, this legislation has consistently faced defeat in our state. This pattern not only shows how wrong right-to-work is for New Hampshire, but also the useless nature of investing time and resources in its pursuit. Such resources could be better used to help with other more pressing issues such as opioids or improved housing. I ask you from the bottom of my heart to please consider my testimony and others along with the facts very carefully, then vote no on Senate Bill 516 FN, the so-called Right to Work bill. Thank you.
It's more of a comment. Thank you for your testimony. I just wanted to commend you on your work ethic and the path that you chose to provide for your family. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Rich Gullo.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, honorable senators, and happy belated St. Patrick's Day to everyone. My name is Richard Gulla. I am president of the State Employees Association. I represent 15,000 employees in state, county, municipal, and private sector. I believe this is my 10th time testifying against this bill, and we do oppose it. And I think it's the 30th or 33rd time that this has come before the legislature. So you've heard a lot of testimony today. I won't bore you with that. One thing that I have heard for proponents of right to work is they often talk that businesses will flock to the state of New Hampshire if this legislation is passed. Well, I would encourage you to work on finding affordable housing, affordable worker housing. I think that's going to attract businesses to the state of New Hampshire. Currently, we have a 22,000 home deficit, and that's going to grow to probably 60,000 by 2030. So if we really want to spend our time doing something that will benefit the Granite State, I would encourage you to start working on that. And I'm open for any questions. Thank you. Thank you.
A valiant effort, though. I appreciate it. Well, thank you for seeing us. My name is Lance Mazzariello. I'm a New Hampshire resident. Husband, father, homeowner, and New Hampshire business leader. I'm vice president of operations for Specialty Services New England, which is a Marquise family company. It's a construction conglomerate based in Salem, New Hampshire. Together, our companies represent about 1,400 employees as of this morning. And we are a union shop. So I'm here in opposition for, I think, the 6th time in my tenure as opposition to this bill that I don't understand why it keeps coming here. I'm wasting resources being here consistently for legislation that no one that we represent is asking for. Our families aren't asking for it. Besides resource diversion, I want to talk a little bit about the business in general and what the unions do for our people. I'm also a union member who came up through apprenticeship. I graduated college in 2005 and I kind of floundered around struggling to find a job that I could afford to pay my student loans back. I got a general degree in management and I worked and I have a good work ethic and I maintain gainful employment, but I couldn't put the pieces together to generate enough of an income to have a life. In 2010, I applied to be a carpenter's apprentice. I said, I'm gonna try something different. I'm gonna go a different direction. I found unbelievable access to immutable skills that have given me the ability, and myself and all of the people that work with me, the ability to earn a dignified living and have that the American dream that we hear so constantly is not attainable anymore. In 2017, my second daughter was born, And about 3 months after being born, she had a stroke. I'm happy to report she's doing wonderful right now, but that's largely in part of the Class A Gold Star health insurance that is afforded to all of the union members working for us. I don't think that I would be telling you that if I was working in the same career path I was in before I got into the union. I don't know, of all the union members I talk to every single day, I don't know a single one of them that is upset with collective bargaining. I can't think of, and I talk to tons of people outside of the union business advocating to come to our side, and I look at their lives and I'm just not, it's not balanced. The narrative now in the news about life in America, you can't afford health insurance, you can't afford a home, we can't afford to live, we can't pay down student debt. That is not the narrative for the average person working in my company that I'm experiencing and working with every single day. You know, I started my career measuring success by taking my kids to the city and pointing out buildings that Dad had worked in. And now that I've moved into executive leadership, I mark my success by the lives that we're building for the people that work for us and the successes that I see them attaining: home ownership, family growth, savings, planning for retirement, thinking about the future. These are not things that you think of when you think of workers who are just working a job. I've heard several times while I was sitting here listening about the companies that might come here if right to work was passed. I'm a company that's here because we don't have right to work. And although we always hear about these ethereal companies that are going to come and they're going to bring jobs, there's never any concrete names, there's never any dollar values, and there's no data behind it. You're looking at the data. I have 1,400 gainfully employed people who have lives that are deeply rooted in New Hampshire and value this. And I think that every time myself or one of my colleagues has to come here and dissuade you from voting in favor of right to work, we're just taking away resources and hurting the ability for us to be a going concern. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate you hearing me out.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Karen Leo Hill. I am a 20-year city councilor and the former mayor of Lebanon. Thank you for allowing me to testify this morning. I'm typically on the other side of the bargaining table from unions, but I'm very proud to stand with labor against right to work. We've heard from the other side that this is about fairness, that no one should be forced to join a union. Now, I do agree that this is about fairness, but the truth is that no one is forced to join a union because no one is forced to take a job in a unionized workplace. But if someone does choose to take a job in a unionized workplace, it is absolutely unfair for that person to then receive the benefits, the working conditions that have been collectively bargained for and paid for by other people. There is a name for that, and we should call it what it is. It's called freeloading, and freeloading is not fair. Now, in my 20 years as a city councilor and as a member of the Economic Development Commission in Lebanon, I have spoken and heard from many businesses about the challenges they face and the ways that we can help them. I have heard about affordable housing. I have heard about childcare. I have heard about a lot of things over 2 decades. I have never once heard from a single business in Lebanon that they need right to work legislation in order to improve their business. Now, I've only been testifying against this legislation for 20 years. I know others have done it for longer. But right to work has been wrong for New Hampshire for as long as it's been introduced, and right to work is still wrong for New Hampshire. Thank you.
Okay, our final speaker, unless someone didn't sign up, Janice Kelly.
Name right. I'm shocked. Must be because I come here summer. Good, good morning, Chairman Gannon, and members of the committee. My name is Janice Kelby, and I'm a retired postal worker. I joined the union immediately after I was hired, and I worked midnight shift in a mail processing plant for the next 29 years. I now live in Hooksett, New Hampshire. As a single parent, when I was hired, I was very aware of the benefits that made me want a job at the post office, that they had been obtained through negotiations with the union. This is probably more evident with the Postal Service than it is in many other workplaces because the Postal Service had a category of employees that were called casuals. Casuals were not necessarily short-timers. Some had worked for over 10 years. They were not a part of any bargaining unit and could not belong to the union. This made the difference between what the Postal Service gives employees out of the kindness of their heart and what had been negotiated by the union crystal clear. It was obvious that the union was responsible for making this a desirable job. Casuals' wages were far less than those that we earned, although they often did identical work. They got no sick leave, they had no health benefits, earned minimal paid time off, and no retirement benefits. Folks were not knocking the doors down to receive a casual appointment. They wanted career jobs, complete with all the benefits that had been negotiated by the union. Workers who tell you that they want nothing to do with the union are not telling the entire truth. They do, in fact, want the benefits that are achieved by the union, and these benefits don't just fall out of the sky. Sadly, working for the USPS is like being in a right-to-work state. People who choose not to join the union don't share the cost of representation. Most postal employees join the union, but not all. Having some people enjoy contract benefits without helping to pay for them causes division and resentment. And the division neither benefits the workers nor the employees, nor does it increase productivity. The union is obligated by law to represent these non-members who pay nothing, not even for their own personal representation. I remember my local defending a non-member in arbitration. 18 years ago, the cost was more than $1,500 for just one day hearing. Our cost, not his. The bigger issue is the considerable resources required to negotiate our contract. If the national postal negotiations reach an impasse, the dispute goes to an arbitrator. I once was asked to testify at a national arbitration case about the duties of a mail processing clerk. I heard testimony from economists and other experts, along with rank and file workers. Listening to the economist, I couldn't help but wonder about the hours of research and preparation that went into her testimony. The union paid for that work. Without her testimony, we would never have convinced the arbitrator to upgrade the pay for that position. The gains from that arbitration benefited all of us, and all of us should pay for that advantage. Real people have a real right to work in New Hampshire now. We have a right to choose to work in a union shop or a non-union shop. Even in union workplaces, not all union workplaces have fair share clauses. Employers have to agree. If an employer and a union choose to negotiate a fair share as a condition of employment, the state has no business interfering, just as it has no business interfering with the dress code policy or any other workplace policy. If a person does not like a company's fair share employment policy or doesn't like the dress code, they have a right to work somewhere else where the policies are different. Or, of course, they are free to talk to other workers and convince them that things should be different. My union struggles to meet the financial burdens of representing people and obtaining a good contract. If enough people decided not to do their part, The union would be seriously weakened, lessening our ability to negotiate a decent contract. This would have a negative impact on our state. Without the benefits negotiated by my union, I could not afford a house and could not afford to support local businesses like I do. Safety in our workplace would also be negatively impacted. It was the union that waged a major safety campaign, literally saving the lives of postal workers. I remember all too well the death of New York postal worker Michael McDermott, who was pulled into the conveyor belt, leaving his young family without a father. I am forever grateful for the resources our union was able to use in a campaign to ensure improvements in safety in the workplace. SB 516 actually does nothing to expand anybody's right to work. It would serve only to weaken unions and lower our standard of living, hurting New Hampshire's economy. The state should not interfere with collective bargaining and with an employer's decision to negotiate an employment policy that requires workers to pay their share of costs of services that they enjoy. I ask that you vote in expedient to legislate on Senate Bill 516. Thank you.
Good morning, sir. My name is Mike King. I'm a local 7-iron worker out of Boston. I've been a New Hampshire homeowner since March of 2003. I've been an iron worker since September 2000. I'd like to take a minute to thank everybody in attendance today for their time and efforts in this matter. I give a little history of my own background. As a child, from the time I was born until I was 5 years old, you'll have to bear with me because my pain is deep. I just dreamed of surviving. From the time that I was 5 till I was 13, I wanted to be a major league ball player. I was pretty good at baseball. I like to think that I'm the all-time home run leader out of the city of Lowell, 17, you know. At the age of 13, I was introduced to drugs and alcohol and tobacco, and it was downhill from there. At the age of 28, I decided to sober up. And at the age of 33, I found myself without a car and $137 to my name. I gave $100 of that to a union organizer, a local 7 out of Boston. He gave me an apprenticeship book. I didn't know anything about ironworking. They taught me everything I need to know. They trained me in safety, and they gave me benefits and health care and retirement. They gave me something to look forward to. Now, every few years, Right to Work comes to New Hampshire, and they petition the New Hampshire State Legislative Body to enact laws that will diminish the quality of life and the prosperity of the New Hampshire resident by limiting their ability to collectively bargain for better wages, benefits, health care, retirement. Now, if you follow the Right to Work hen back to the hen house, you will see big business bringing their hands because they want to put their hands on our money. Now, big business feels that by taking away our rights to negotiate for better wages and health care and retirement, that they know better than us what to do with our money. And I'm telling you here today, they don't. Okay, what I've done with my money, the money that the union's given me is astronomical. They gave me a dream and a retirement, and I took advantage of it. Now, big business has always had this understanding that trickle-down economics is the way to go. And I'm here today to tell you that it's not, because it's on the supply side of the equation. It's only the increase in the demand side that increases the supply side out of necessity. Now, New Hampshire, where I've luckily have landed and decided to live, is number one in many, many categories, or in the top three. They have the lowest crime rate. They have the highest quality of life. They have some of the lowest unemployment rates. They have the highest air quality, the best air quality in the country. And we're going to let them come here and take that away from us? Now, they want to limit the amount that, or they want to make it so, Right to Work wants to make it so that you wouldn't have to pay a union assessment. You could get all the benefits from a union that, the union provides. Well, I can tell you personally that the union assessment is worth every dime that you pay into it. The return on that investment is astronomical. I have paid over $60,000 in assessment and union dues in 22 years, very happily. Because that $60,000 I was able to turn into over $1 million. Okay? For my kid. They can only dream of surviving. To one with enough money to enjoy the rest of their life. Means a lot. That comes from a union. That doesn't come from a non-union employer, private employer, because they want to walk away with all the money. The unions distribute the money to the membership. That's why they're a union. So if you want prosperity and you want dignity in retirement for your residents, for your voters, please, indefinitely, I believe this is the term they use, indefinitely do away with this. Have us not come back here and waste our time and money anymore on this issue. And I thank you for your time today, folks. Any questions? Thank you.
Anyone else wish to testify?
Apologize. I did not check the correct box.
That's okay.
We'd be remiss if I didn't get up and testify in front of you today. I appreciate you taking the time, and I know it's a little late. My name is Scott Gove. I reside in Pennacook, New Hampshire. I'm a 36-year Teamster. In 36 years, I've probably been to many of your homes delivering packages over the course of my career. I just wanted to put a face on it. You've heard all the stats, and so I don't want to belabor that. I want you to know that I've raised 3 children in this fine state through the benefits of a union. 2 of them are currently, one at UNH and one at Keene. Again, without those benefits and without that type of pay, I don't think I could have provided that type of life for my family. We also give back in multiple ways to the state. So we have the platinum plans in healthcare. That means my children are going to the dentists and the doctors and all those professional agencies that my coworkers and their families go to. We support that community in our state. I just feel that sometimes as the worker,
And as the guy that goes to work every day, I am not sitting here before you with an orange badge. I am out chasing that dream, providing for my family. And in the course of that, I also provide for many of the other services and the other members that you serve alongside that have businesses in our great state, whether they be insurance, law offices. We're able to go to those places because we make the kind of money and have the type of benefits that provide work for those professional people in our society as well. So please remember that across the backs of the men and women that have testified before me, especially the guys that work every day, we don't come before you, we don't ask for a lot. But when we come and we take time off from what we do every day that takes away from our daily work, understand that we're here and we mean business. And as a worker in the state of New Hampshire, I ask you to take SB 516 FN and vote at ITL. Thank you. Thank you for your time, and I'll take any.
Thanks for your testimony. Anyone else we missed? Seeing none, that ends the hearing. Oh, I'm sorry. Good afternoon.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you very much to the Vice Chair for noticing me waving. I've been listening. So I've been listening to a lot of the testimony on the YouTube stream. So I'm Representative Timothy Horrigan from Stratford County District 10, which is the town of Durham. And I think the one thing well, you probably heard a lot of testimony, but one thing is that the whole phrase "right to work" is kind of a misnomer. So work is actually a privilege. So it's something that people do voluntarily, and but they should be treated well and compensated fairly. And it's good for our economy if people are treated well and paid more. And if we just let capital is nothing without labor, and there is a tendency to exploit workers. And I think the business community is, in the last few years, as we had, the things were disrupted by COVID, and if people in my age bracket, which is probably the age bracket of people on the other side of the table, are retiring or at least downshifting, there's become kind of a reckoning to realize that the workforce is not a infinite resource. So I would, I say unions are good, not only for the members of the union, also for the members, also for the workers who choose not to join the union, which is not, I would say, we're working in a union shop, which is, I would say, is probably a poor choice, but it is a choice they're free to make. And also, it also improves wages and benefits even for people in other organizations which aren't unionized, which brings me to one point which you probably heard a lot of points, but I didn't hear it during the hour or so when I was driving over here, which is in just about every industry and every job category, you have your choice of either unionized or non-unionized workforces. So somebody wants to do a particular type of work and they just can't bear to have anything to do with the union. They don't even want to be, a worker in a union shop who opts not to join the union. There are other workplaces they can choose which don't have a union, and they won't be paying an agency fee, but probably on balance, they're not going to be paid as well. They're not going to have as much control over their working conditions, and it's just not going to be as good as an experience as if they're in a union shop. And also we've heard a lot of and also we heard some comments during the debate in the House, which was about how we had a gentleman came up, and I'm not on the floor of the House, who was supported the bill, and he does some sort of software work. He's very proud of the fact that he's quote unquote an independent worker who negotiates his own working conditions. Well, there's lots of places where you can be in a union and still negotiate your own contract. One very prominent example of the baseball season starting soon. All those players are union members. They all negotiate their own contracts within the framework set by the union, but they all negotiate their own contracts. My apologies, I'll hang on. It's probably not important anyway. So that was, all those, that's obviously a somewhat unique example, but even in other industries, you can be in a union and still like negotiate your own contracts. I would say, and finally, I guess I already said finally twice, but this bill is indefinitely postponed in the House, and you're certainly that your rules certainly allow you to consider this bill, but sending it over to the other side of the wall is an exercise in futility, aside from the fact that it's already been rejected by a large bipartisan margin. We would need a 2/3 vote on my side of the wall, even to have another set of hearings. So that's, probably, so it's probably like not worth your time going to all the trouble to send it over to the other side of the wall, because nothing's going to happen. And we can wait till next year to deal with this bill again. So thank you.
Thank you, Representative Horgan. We are all set. Seeing no other testimony. Anyone else? Going. That ends this hearing. Thank you.